The Center for the Promotion of Public Enterprise says the first half of 2022 for the Nigerian economy has been characterized by diverse economic vulnerabilities. In its first half-year economic review, the CPPE looked at different challenges facing Nigeria's key industries and prescribed solutions. Joining us to discuss further is Dr. Muda Yusuf. He's the founder and CEO of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Yeah, welcome, sir. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Very, so much to discuss. So we never have enough time to go through these things. Yes. But last time you had you on the show, we ended on the exchange rates. We didn't have enough time to finish, so we'll start there. Your report goes into the fact that, let's look at this now, I think as of the 25th, official rates hasn't deviated much, 0.17% depreciation to 427 from 426.25 back in January, but the parallel market rates, 660 from 560 back in January the 4th, almost an 18% depreciation. Plus, there's a quote from your report where you say that the central bank hasn't recognized that the transactions that take place here in the country are mostly from the parallel market. So what's the solution? What do we do?
Well, I think we need to come to terms with the reality of the situation. Each time I listen to the outcome of the MPC, there is very little mention about this huge foreign exchange challenge. Yeah. Particularly the huge disparity between the official window and the parallel market window, and the fact that the rates in the official window is not exactly what you can call a market rate. So you can't even call the official window as a foreign exchange market. It's looking more like a platform for some discretionary administrative allocation of foreign exchange. And that comes with a whole lot of problems. Yeah. So I think that disparity and the current mechanism for the management of the official window is a major issue. So if you want to get out of this quagmire, because rather than get better, the situation is getting worse. And the reality is that the parallel market rate is practically the reference rate for practically all economic activities. Because access to the official window to get the right kind of amount of forex you require is extremely limited. Yeah. Investors have said, manufacturers and the rest of them have said sometimes they get 10%, they get 15%. So what can you do with that? So this is throwing a lot of pressure back to the parallel market. So I think what we need to do at a policy level is to begin to address that framework, to come up with a more flexible regime that will allow for a proper determination of rate. And that has a number of advantages. First, it will boost government revenue. Okay. Government is talking now about deficit, about this debt service, fuel subsidy, almost painting a picture of a major fiscal crisis. Yes. So if we adjust the rate, it will help to boost government revenue. Because when I looked at even the MTEF that was just recently presented by the finance minister, we are still putting exchange rate at 417, 420, 425, even for the next 2-3 years. That obviously is not a realistic thing to do, especially for a government that desires to generate as much revenue as it can. Yeah. I mean, why not put it at 500? Especially when you look at the kind of gap that you have. Secondly, it will help to unlock inflows. Because this economy has a lot of potentials, a lot of opportunities, even in spite of the prevailing circumstances. In order to unlock inflows, either from FDI or from foreign portfolio flows, a more flexible rate will help to unlock the inflows. And that will help to strengthen the supply side, because we have a major supply crisis. That is where this is coming from. We have a major supply side. That's not to diminish the demand side issues that you have, but we have a major supply side problem. So if we are able to have that kind of unlocking of the supply side, either from FDI, from portfolio flows, from export proceeds and all of them. That will help the supply. Then on the demand side, the current regime is also fueling demand unduly. Because we have so many parasites in the system, it's not as if they are engaged in any concrete economic activities, but they are there just to catch in on the premium between the parallel market rate and the official rate. Yeah. So that in itself is fueling artificially the demand. So if you have a more flexible exchange rate, that component of demand pressure will be eliminated. Because what we need to do is to reduce demand and boost supply. And that will help to improve the situation. And of course, the big pressure coming from fuel importation. That's another major issue on the demand side. That's a much longer term issue. Until we're able to deal with the issues of refineries, to reduce the importation of petroleum products, that we may have to live with that for some time. And if we're also lucky, unfortunately, which is an irony, to have a reduction in crude oil price, that may reduce the pressure on the subsidy and reduce the pressure of demand. Yeah. So at the policy level, those are the things I think we can do. At the fiscal level is to improve productivity, to fix our refineries, to improve the capacity of our industries in the area of import substitution. And in order to do that, we should be looking at how quickly we can resuscitate our core industries. Because the collapse of the core industries is also fueling the demand, the import dependence of our manufacturers. When I say core industries, I'm talking about industries that support the lighter industries. Industries like the iron and steel. Industries like the petrochemicals. Yes. Things like the paper industry. You know, this bulk and paper industry, yep. You know, that Oku and Jepa Paper Mill. These are core industries that are supposed to support some of these industries and reduce the demand for importation of raw materials. So these are the strategies I think we can use, both on the fiscal side and on the monetary and foreign exchange policy side.
Fantastic. Debt. Your report also talks about Nigeria's debt issues. Of course, we've heard now that debt service to revenue, or rather, what we spent, expenditure on debt servicing has exceeded revenue, I think, between January and April, 1.9 trillion versus 1.6 or so. Well, what's the solution there?
Well, that again is a very disturbing situation. The trajectory is not looking too good because of the fiscal outlook. But what that points to is the nature of the fiscal crisis that you have, which unfortunately has been escalated or exacerbated by this fuel subsidy thing, But in dealing with a fiscal crisis, we look at both the demand side, or we look at both the cost side and the revenue side. We look at expenditure and revenue. We see how we can reduce expenditure. Yep. We see also how we can boost revenue. Yes. Those are the two critical things. So what needs to happen is to look at the variables driving revenue. How can we improve on the revenue situation? First, this mentality of feeling that the more you tax those who are in business, the more revenue you make, I think is something that we need to review.
So you're saying that doesn't really work?
It doesn't really work. Yeah. It doesn't really work because you need the economy to grow for your revenue to grow. So we need to create the environment for those who are investors, those who are taxpayers, particularly at the corporate level, at the investment level, to be able to grow, to flourish. If they flourish, the capacity to pay tax will increase and we get more revenue. Secondly, we need to look at, I talked about the FX, the exchange rate that is being used for the computation of the dollar income. Yeah. It is currently around 416 or 417 or 420. It's not realistic. We need to adjust that so that you can have a lot more revenue. Then we have this crisis with our oil production and oil theft. That's also a major window of leakage of revenue. Because if you have that kind of massive theft in oil, And this is not just like stealing a phone or stealing a pin.
Right.
These are people who are loading vessels. You know, so this is a big scale theft. And there must have been a big cartel around that. Government should be able to easily address that. And especially in these days when oil price is so high, if we're able to at least meet up with our OPEC quota, that will also help with revenue. Then there's also the issue of leakages. The problem of leakages is still very much there. We've already seen evidence, even from the few arrests that arrests and prosecution by the EFCC, and some of the information that is coming out from all these issues. So there's still a lot of corruption issue. And when you begin to have that kind of leak, it also affects the revenue available to government. So we need to address the issue of leakages. And of course, the entire machinery of making sure that our tax administration is much tighter, not necessarily imposing additional tax, but ensure that we have a much tighter tax administration to avoid leakages. These are some of the things that we can do, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side. Because if you are dealing with a fiscal crisis, I haven't seen much action around the expenditure. We keep spending as though nothing has gone wrong. And that has been the situation over the past few years. So there has not been any deliberate effort to cut down on expenditure. I'm not saying that we should sack people. But at least there are other areas in which, if you look critically, we see areas in which we can cut expenditure.
Fantastic. You mentioned a number of industries in your reports: manufacturing, trade, so on and so forth, that need assistance. There was an interview we had on Friday, the Arise interview with players in the bread space, where they were talking about issues that they've been facing with support. Segun Olowe, who is, I think, finance secretary for one of the Lagos chapter of one of the unions. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say.
As at last year, when we were in National Assembly, the 15% level has accumulated to over 500 billion naira. 500 billion naira. Government refused to release this money to meet the need of bakers. Apart from that, we need grants from that money. That money is our money. It was agreed during the President Obasanjo and Jonathan era that that money will be gathered to be invested back into the industry. Now we don't have that investment, despite the challenges we are facing.
What do you make of that? They're calling for a number of things, including that levy to be removed.
You see, the issue of levy, because of the fiscal situation, the challenges of finance that we have, most of these levies have practically been absorbed into the general government's revenue and probably even spent. It's not only this wheat levy. We had levy, there's the automotive levy, there's the rice levy, and quite a number of levies like that. And the bulk of that money, I'm not sure it's available for anybody to be talking about, either distributing, because those who are in the automobile sector also have similar complaints. This amount has grown significantly. It's supposed to be used to support those who are in the auto industry, but nothing has happened. So I think it's a major issue in terms of, and it's because of the tight financial situation of government, I'm not sure that anybody can have access to that kind of levy. But more importantly is to address, outside of the levy issues, how we can use some fiscal policy tools. Bread is expensive. We have the Ukraine-Russia factor. But you can look at the taxes on wheat. We can look at taxes and levies on sugar. Because we are talking of bread, the key major components of inputs is sugar and flour.
You mentioned sugar in your reports.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because even the sugar issue, quite a number of industries are complaining about access, availability, scarcity. So if there is anything the government can do to unlock that, because that is also affecting the capacity utilization in many other industries that are dependent on the use of sugar, particularly those who are in the food and beverage industry, including those who are bakers. So we need to address the fiscal policy variables, tariffs and taxes around those things. Of course, we know that internationally we have an issue.
Yeah.
We know that we have an issue with foreign exchange, which is also taking a toll on this.
Yeah.
But those things that we have control over, I think we can deploy them. It's not as if it's going to hurt the revenue so significantly.
Yeah.
So we can afford to tinker with some of these things to bring some succor to people like those of us that eat bread and the bakers as well.
Dr. Muda Yusuf, founder, CEO of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.